everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are doing the mid-April reading update. If you're new here, I have started sharing what I read twice a month, once in the middle of the month and the other at the end. And this is the first one for April. I've read so far only 5 books and I have varying thoughts on them, but most of them have been great books. And I am very excited to share them with you, so let's get straight into it. The first book that I completed in April, I've actually spoken a little bit about in my last video. It was the Mildly Chaotic Journal with Me session. I actually was journaling about that book, so if you've checked that out, you'll know a little bit about it already, but if you haven't, I'll leave the link in the description. So the book is Always Be My Duchess by Emily Howard. It is book 1 in the Taming of the Duke series, and I read it as an audiobook, so it was a great thing to listen to. I liked the narrator and I listened to it all in one day. It was so good. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't think I was going to. In the beginning, it's very obvious that they have an instant attraction to one another, the two main characters, so I was worried that insta love was going to be a play, and that's not something I enjoy. But it was actually much deeper than that, and I really enjoyed the banter of the story. So I think this is actually her debut novel, and if it is, it was fantastic. The storyline is about 2 people who need something from each other, and they step into a fake relationship, which is quite often used in historical romances. So the Duke is Lysander Blackstone, and he is attempting to buy a piece of property that will help him expand his train network that he's working on. I believe that was what he was doing. And the man that owns the property doesn't want to sell unless it's to a family man. And obviously the Duke is not that. He is very singular and or single, I should say, and very focused on his business side of things, not on relationships. And then you have a struggling ballerina called Genevieve, or Neve, and she is from France, but she's in London because she needs to try and find a company that will take her in so she can perform. Back in France, she has a sister who is injured and has medical bills, and so she needs to make money. Obviously they cross paths, they have an instant attraction with each other, and then he offers her money in order to play a role as his fake fiance or fake partner for the night. It was supposed to be only one night, but then something happens. Obviously they step into a longer relationship, and I'm pretty sure you can guess where it's going to go. They fall in love with each other. I thought this was really fun. I loved the banter. It reminded me a lot of the Evie Dunmore series, where there is a group of women who all get together and they come from different lines of life, whether being poor or a lady, and they still can connect quite well because they have different things going on for them that perhaps society doesn't seem as normal or would like to have in their society circle. So there's this group of women and they are evidently going to be the main characters of the series. This is just book 1 in the series. The next one follows another character that we met in this book, and I think it will just be about 4 books. So I think there's 4 women. Anyway, I really enjoyed their connection and the way that they accepted one another, because they were all essentially outcasts in some way, but their social status meant that they had a place in the ton and that sort of society gatherings and stuff like that. So obviously the more Neve spends with Stone, she falls in love with him, and he does as well. There's really good angst in here, and the resolutions to the obstacles are done well. I did find that the ending of the book dragged a little bit. It could have ended a lot earlier than it did, but overall I was really happy with it. I liked the romance, I liked the tension that built between the romance. That's one of my favorite things in historical romances, is the tension, and I really did enjoy that part of it. So I gave it 4.5 stars. So the second book that I listened to in April was Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. This is book 1 in the Lovelight series, and for the most part I really enjoyed this. I did struggle in the beginning to get into the story, but once I was fully involved I came to really enjoy it. This follows Stella, and she owns a struggling Christmas tree farm in bids to try and get some exposure and further profiting income. She enters a competition, a social media competition, and she actually becomes one of the finalists in it. But she lied on her entry form saying that she was doing this with her boyfriend, thinking that she would never get this far. Obviously, she is now having to host the person running the competition, and her best friend steps in as her fake boyfriend. I guess I have a thing for fake dating, which I do. I do like that trope. But 2 books in a row. Anyway, this was really well done. Like I said, I did struggle a little bit with the narrator of this, and I did struggle with some of the way that Stella thought. It felt very naive and immature at times, but the more you get into the book, the more it makes sense, the more it feels like wholesome and really really right. And the tension and the romance is done really well. It's quite steamy, actually. I wasn't expecting how much there would be in that aspect, but I enjoyed it. The whole romance was really well done, and I think that's the main reason I enjoyed this story. So her best friend is Luca, and they've been friends for about a decade now, and obviously they've both been in love with each other for the whole time, and so that was really cute. I liked them figuring out that they actually felt the same way. The end angst was a little bit over the top, and that is why I only gave it 4 stars, but overall I enjoyed the story, and I'm looking forward to picking up book 2. I think I will do that as an audiobook as well. Even though I wasn't very fond of the narrator's voice, I think that I'm used to it now, that I will probably enjoy it. So the next book on the list is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by 𝓤𝓮𝓻𝓮 𝓤𝓲. This was book club read, and I absolutely loved this. I gave it 5 stars. I highly recommend it, especially if you read along or listen to the audiobook. The narrators for this book are so amazing, and just the whole experience is so much more diverse and enriching than if you were to just read it on page. I was recommended on the first day to pick up the audiobook, so I did, and read it alongside the physical copy, and I'm so glad I did, because honestly, game changer. Absolutely loved it. I normally just listen to romances because there's not a lot of world building or anything that you need to really pay full attention to. I can do other tasks, whereas with fantasy I feel the world building is a little bit more intricate than a romance, and I do like to pay a bit more attention that way. So it was a new experience, but I highly recommend listening to the audiobook. It's so well done. But this is about Amina. She is in her 40s, she's had a child, and she was once a very infamous pirate in the Indian Ocean, and there are great tales about her. Everyone has something to say about her, whether it's good or bad or true or false. So she's got quite the reputation, but she has been retired for the last 10 years. But she is approached by a grandmother who desperately wants her granddaughter back. She believes she's been kidnapped, and so Amina goes on this final adventure to rescue the granddaughter, because she has a connection to the child, as well as she feels a level of guilt. So she goes off on her adventure, not realizing just how deadly it was going to be. There was a lot of money involved, and of course her idea to set up her family, get them sorted, and know that her daughter has a future that is brighter because of money, really led her into this adventure. It's much deadlier than she expected, and she's also in her 40s. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm getting there myself, and I can wholly relate with Amina. She has a bad knee, her body's not as sprightly as it was once, and so going back to being a pirate after many years off has good and bad consequences, I suppose, or yeah, I'll go with consequences. So she finds it easy to fall back into being the pirate that she once was, in a sense of she loves being on the ocean, she's enjoying herself, she definitely has that pirate seafaring way, and it's just so well done. And her crew that she keeps close are also around her age, so it's fun to see things like, you know, a little bit of sight issues and all that holding them back, but they're still as amazing as they could have been beforehand. The connection between Amina and her friends is just so well done, and this book is just full of adventure. You get a really good sense for Amina and her personality, the morals that she has, whether they're good or bad ones, and what she's willing to fight for. I really enjoyed the fact that despite her weaknesses, I guess, as you could put them, there were many strengths that she could still rely on, and she also was still quite reckless, very much so had the sense to put herself into situations that a lot of people wouldn't have, to get through this whole adventure and rescue the granddaughter. The whole story is based also around magic. So there's a really great magic system in here, and it's quite deadly, dangerous and dark, but there's also a very cowardly demon and just a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. This book has everything that you need in a fantasy, and it kept me engaged from start to finish, and I cannot wait to pick up book 2. Everyone in the book club really loved this. I don't think anyone gave it below 5 stars, and that is my favorite book so far this month. In fact, almost this whole year I have one book that possibly still tops it, but other than that, this is the book. Everyone needs to read this if you love pirates on big adventures and like found family, that kind of thing in a fantasy. You'll love this. Whilst editing this, I realised I missed a really important factor to this book. So the author actually researched the time period she set it in, which was the 12th century. There's an author's note at the start of the book, and I was dubious because I am a historian, so factual and historical inaccuracies in fiction doesn't really sit well with me unless there's a reason for it. And you can tell that she's done the research. This world is rich, and you can tell that she has really incorporated quite effortlessly the Crusades, the time period, the cultures, the land, everything. And I was just so blown away by this detail, and I had to let you know that as well, because I wouldn't rest if I didn't. The next book I read was an ebook, and I've been waiting for this book all year long. It is If Only You by Chloe Leese, and it is book 6 in the Bergman Brothers series, sorry. And I couldn't wait to get a paperback in my hands, so I brought the ebook the day before it was released, and I devoured it in a couple of sittings. I've had really busy weeks, so I couldn't just dedicate one day like I wanted to. But this follows Ziggy, and she is the youngest of the Bergman brood, and she wants to be seen as an adult, not a child anymore. So she actually crosses paths with her brother Ren's best friend at his wedding, called Sebastian, but he gets called Seb, and he is a hockey player. I forgot to mention that Ziggy is a soccer player. They're both professional athletes, and Ziggy knows that he has a bad boy reputation. He's actually injured because he crashed his car, and he was in a brawl and everything like that. So he's got a very big bad boy image, and Seb is pretty much trying to live his life in a way to show spite to his parents. But that is obviously going to lead to him losing the one thing that he enjoys most in life, which is hockey. And so he agrees to Ziggy's plan of them becoming friends. They're going to be pretend friends and get exposure from being seen with each other, that he will look like he's a reformed bad boy, and on the right track back to gaining his sponsorships back and all that. And Ziggy's going to finally step out of the shadows or stop being a wallflower and get a bit more of a bad girl image and actually get noticed by people around her because she's tired of being seen as meek or whatever. And I really enjoyed this. I did find that Sebastian's issues, whilst very understandable, were quite repetitive. He has a lot of self-worth issues, so he doesn't think he deserves Ziggy's attention or her friendship or further than that. But at the same time, it made sense as to why he felt that way. It just felt a little bit repetitive. Other than that, I have no real complaints about this book. The relationship starts off very fast-paced. They start to have feelings pretty quick into the story, which would have worried me if it became more insta-love right away, but there is some time that travels through it. Oh, there was another issue that I had. There was a time jump at the end, but it's not a big one that it bothered me. Still, I would have liked to have seen where that 6 months had gone between them. All the same, this book is very well done. If you've read any of the others in this series, you'll know the formula that Chloe goes with. She really likes to work with mental health representations. So Ziggy has autism and she's neurodivergent. I think she also has a bit of anxiety. And Seb has undiagnosed celiac disease, and then obviously he finds out within the book that he has it. He also struggles with a lot of anger, I suppose, or just a lot of hatred towards the way that he was brought up, which is very understandable, and that is unleashed in the wrong ways until he meets Ziggy. And I like the way that Ziggy gives him hope, and that he gives her confidence and a way to bloom into something more than what she is. I think the connection between them is really well done, and so that short time getting to know each other and really becoming quite connected to one another doesn't make such a big deal as it would in other books where insta-love is, or insta-lust is at the forefront. I highly recommend this book. I think the whole series is fantastic, and I cannot wait to finish the last book in the series next year, which is crazy to think about, but also I'm very eager for it. The final book that I'm going to talk about today is Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. Now this book looks awesome. It has a great idea that Angelika cannot seem to find herself a partner. She has gone through all the possible suitors that she has in her area. People have come from all over the country or even out of the country to possibly be her partner, as she is a wealthy heiress. However, she's also very different from other women. She's not like the other girls kind of thing. And so she decides to, with her brother, help, since he is a scientist, to create her own match. So she goes to a morgue and she picks out a body she absolutely loves, and she doesn't think that he needs any changes, but her brother insists on her doing the experiment correctly and changing his body. So he gets his head removed from that body and put onto a more muscular one, and even his appendage is different. So yeah, everything in this book sounds quite funny and delightful at first, but let me tell you, I struggled with this. I wanted to love it so much, but I really didn't. It's like a fever dream in some aspects. It's just so out of this world. And now Sally Thorne has always had a quirky way of writing, and her books aren't always everyone's cup of tea. And the last book I read by her, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it much at all, and then I got into it and I got involved with more of the storyline, and I ended up giving it 4 stars, even though I had problems with it. And I thought that might be the same case here, but unfortunately I've ended up giving this 2.5 stars, simply because there is a lot in here that is not okay. The first thing that you notice is that Victor and Angelika have a very unhealthy sibling relationship. So if you take this book and you try to put sense into it, it just doesn't work. So you really need to try and read it as a satire. But even then, I struggled with trying to keep it light and not put any emphasis into anything. Angelika is very unlikable in the sense of she is supposed to be some spoilt, vapid heiress that has no issues in life, and for the most part you do get to see her change from being spoiled and understanding that there's more to life and there's struggle like right happening outside her door that she could help with, like poverty and all that in the village. And so it's good to see her reform that way, but she is very, very self-centric, and I find that really challenging in any romance. I cannot get behind someone who doesn't seem to be more aware of what their actions cause. And the way that Angelika talks to Will, who is the main male character, the one that she created for herself, is really odd. There is a lot of the word cock said in this book, like multiple times. The very first time she meets him once he's awake, yeah, very straight into her horniness and very much so wanting to just get it on and be married and be done with it. But obviously her match comes with a bit of an opinion, and he wants to discover who he was before he died because he has no memories. So I just found this really challenging to get behind. There's just so much going on in it, but also a lot of it's not explained. So sure, they did the whole resurrection of, you know, the Frankenstein tale that we all know, that she created him as bits of bodies and he came to life. But there's no explanation as to how that happened, just a bit of thunder and some sheep guts. And then there's no explanation about how he lives after that, why, what keeps him going, nothing like that. And I guess this is a romance, so we're not going to go into those depths, but there's also a lot of things that happen that don't get resolved. There's questions that are left at the end, and you're just expected to be thankful for how it goes. I did find it really challenging. I wanted to put it down so many times, but I wanted to know what happened next. I hate when that happens, and so I did end up finishing it. I was going to give it 3 stars because I did like one bit at the end which was quite clever. I thought it was really well done. However, I really don't think that I can, given how many open-ended questions there are, that I didn't like the characters, I didn't understand the romance, I didn't get the connection between the brother and the sister. It was very, very odd. If I spoke to my brother that way, I cringe just thinking about it. It's just awful. And yeah, this is supposed to be light-hearted, funny, but it just doesn't hit right, and it's very, very, I don't even know the word that I'm looking for. It's not the type of humour that I'm looking for in a romance, and it's not the type of connection. Yeah, these were just very weird people, and I really love the cover. It looks really cute, but unfortunately what's on the inside isn't so great. So I'm currently reading one book, and my original review of what I've read so far was kind of spoilery, so that's why I'm doing another voiceover in this video. So the book I'm reading is The Stolen Throne by Abigail Owen. It is an e-arc. It is book 2 in the Dominion series. I don't want to go into too much depth after all about what I'm reading, but I do want to say that I really enjoyed book 1, and that is why I applied for the second book in the series, but I'm really struggling with this one. I'm finding it really challenging to get through because there's a lot of angsty behaviour. I'm not really happy with the characters and how they're acting towards each other, because this is a really cool concept where the main male character is made up of shadows that are really challenging for him to get through each day and keep in check, and the female character is a hidden throwaway princess. Essentially she is the second twin, and if anything was to happen to her sister, or if she could prevent that from happening, she is to step in and sacrifice herself. So this whole concept has been really interesting to me, but now I just feel like it's getting a bit tiring, and the characters aren't really developing in a way that is useful towards the storyline. So I will let you know more when I get to the update at the end of the month how I felt about this, but overall so far I'm not really enjoying it as much as I did the first book. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I think that's all the books that I need to talk about. Like I said, I've only read the 5 books and I've got the 6th book on the go right now. I'm definitely not convinced that I will complete my TBR jar prompts this month. I've only completed 1 from memory, I think. Let me just quickly check. I've got my book beside me here. Let me turn the page. Oh. Yeah, I've only completed 1, which was this one, and I have 3 books that I really need to get on with. I think the 4th one is probably out of my range for this month, so probably going to have to pick up a punishment next month, but we'll see at the end of this month in the reading update, and also with the TBR jar video that will come up at the end of the month, whether or not I will be picking up that punishment. But I'm enjoying the books that I've read for the most part, and I'm hopeful that the book I'm reading currently will pick up, or I can move on to something that will entice me back into enjoying reading again. I definitely feel like I have a book withdrawal, or like a slump period now that I've finished Amina, because ever since then I've just been a little bit like but overall, having a good start to the month, and I will be back with another video following up with my rest of April's reading for you all sometime soon. Bye everyone.